Hi everyone, this is Lauren from the Central Arkansas Library System. As you can see, today's program is going to be over how to fund your small business. It is a part 2 to the first video last month where I showed you how to calculate your small business startup costs. So if you haven't watched that one, I would highly recommend watching it before this one just because some information in this program that I will be referencing does come from the first program. Let's get into it. The 4 different types of funding I'm going to cover are self-funding, venture capital, crowdfunding, and small business loans. I know this looks like a lot of text, but I'm going to do my best to break down each self-funding option. Starting off, personal savings. Saving up the money to fund your business ahead of time saves you money, meaning you don't have to pay interest, and it does offer security, but it does involve risking your life savings. An HELOC, also known as a home equity loan, works very similarly to a credit card where you only pay interest on the outstanding balance. Both carry a low interest rate as compared to other forms of financing. However, putting up the family home as collateral certainly raises the stakes for the business. You must ensure you will have sufficient cash flow to make your payments or you may lose the home. The next one is life insurance self-funding, and it's a little bit trickier. As mentioned in the slide, there are definitely some risks. You can typically borrow up to the cash value you've accumulated as a reasonable interest rate, and unlike a conventional loan, you won't need to pay the loan back. Instead, any funds you take out will be deducted from the amount your beneficiaries receive when you die. However, and this is where it gets tricky, life insurance loans are subject to some tricky taxation and compound interest. If you pay your loan interest out of your policy, the IRS views it as income and will tax it accordingly. You'll also be subject to compound interest. Take these disadvantages into consideration before withdrawing your total cash value. With an IRA or an individual retirement account, you can withdraw money from your IRA interest and it's tax-free as long as you replace it within 60 days. However, make sure you pay back the money on time. If you're just 1 day late in replacing the money for any reason, you'll instantly be charged a 10% penalty and you'll need to pay taxes on any of the money you haven't paid tax. Lastly, investments in securities. Borrowing against your investments in securities as collateral offers an easy way to raise the money you need at a low interest rate. You can borrow up to the initial margin limit of your stock, which is typically about 25 to 50%. The downside to taking out a margin loan is maintaining enough equity in your investments to avoid margin calls. If your stock drops and you don't have enough equity to maintain the margin limit, you'll need to supply more money within a certain time frame. If you don't have enough cash within that time frame, your brokerage may liquidate your other securities to satisfy the call. The main pro to self-funding is having full control over your business and money. As you are the only one funding, you can make all the choices for your business plan without having to worry about getting approval from investors or other sources. The downsides to self-funding is also that you have full control over your business and money. If you don't have a lot of business experience, it's a great idea to try to contact some business planning companies and different accountants to help you get a plan and to keep your finances together. If your business fails with the initial amount that you put into it, there is nothing to fall back on, and if you took out any personal loan, you could quickly fall into debt. These are very important pros and cons to consider when considering self-funding to fund your small business. The next big option that we're going to cover is venture capital from investors. Investors can give you funding to start your business in the form of venture capital investments. Venture capital is normally offered in exchange for an ownership share and an active role in the company. It differs from traditional financing in a number of important ways. Venture capital typically focuses high-growth companies, invests capital in return for equity rather than debt, takes higher risks in exchange for potential higher returns, and has a longer investment horizon than traditional financing. One thing to keep in mind is almost all venture capitalists will, at a minimum, want a seat on the board of directors, so be prepared to give up some portion of control and ownership of your company in exchange for funding this way. There's no guaranteed way to get venture capital, but the process generally follows a standard order of basic steps. The very first step is to find an investor. Look for individual investors, sometimes called angel investors, or venture capital firms. Be sure to do enough background research to know if the investor is reputable and has experience working with startup companies. A simple Google search for or about investors can yield a lot of important information. Next is to share your business plan with the investor. The investor will review your business plan to make sure it meets their investing criteria. Most investment funds concentrate on an industry, geographic area, or stage of business development. The next step is the investors will look at your company's management team, market, products and services, corporate governance documents, and financial statements. This is one of the most important parts for gaining venture capital funding, which is why it's extremely important to have all your ducks in a row per se when it comes to your business plan and projected financials. Number 4, work out the terms. If they want to invest, the next step is to agree on a term sheet that describes the terms and conditions for the fund to make an investment. This is mostly done in the form of a contract, so it would be very helpful to have a lawyer who specializes in business to also look over the contract and its clauses with you so you're aware of anything in it before you sign. Lastly, the most fun step is the investment itself. Once a venture fund has invested, it becomes actively involved in the company. Venture funds normally come in rounds, and as the company meets milestones, further rounds of financing are made available, with adjustments in price as long as the company executes its plan. Our next big funding option is crowdfunding. Crowdfunders aren't technically investors because they don't receive a share of ownership in the business and don't expect financial return on their money. Instead, a monetary return like getting venture capital, crowdfunders expect to get a gift from your company as a thanks for their contribution. Often, that gift is the product you plan to sell or other special perks, like meeting the business owner or getting their name in the credits. This makes crowdfunding a popular option for people who want to produce creative works like a documentary or a physical product like a high-tech cooler. Crowdfunding is also popular because it's very low risk for business owners. Not only do you get to retain full control of your company, but if your business plan fails, you're typically under no obligation to repay your crowdfunders. Every crowdfunding platform is different though, so be sure to read the fine print and understand your full financial and legal obligations before considering crowdfunding. If you want to retain complete control of your business but don't have enough funds to start, consider a small business loan. This is the next big one that we're going to cover. To increase your chances of securing a loan, you should have a business plan, expense sheet, and projected financials for the next 5 years. These tools will give you an idea of how much you'll need to ask for and will help the bank know that they're making a smart choice in giving you a loan. The application process is slightly different for each type of loan, but you will usually have to submit a business plan and a request for proposal, also known as an RFP. Once you have your materials ready, contact banks and credit unions to request a loan. You'll want to compare offers to get the best possible terms for your loan. It can be difficult to get a small business loan as a startup, but don't be discouraged. The next slide, we're going to cover some resources from the Small Business Administration regarding small business loans. I always highly recommend looking at the Small Business Administration resources, but here are some resources that are specific to small business loans. The first one is using Lender Match to find lenders who offer SBA guaranteed loans. If you have trouble getting traditional business loans, you should look into SBA guaranteed loans. When a bank thinks your business is too risky to lend money to, the SBA can always guarantee your loan. That way, the bank has less risk and is more willing to give your business a loan. The next one is the Small Business Investment Company, also known as an SBIC. SBICs are privately owned and managed investment funds licensed and regulated by the SBA. They use their own capital, plus funds borrowed with an SBA guarantee, to make equity and debt investments in qualifying small businesses. Next is the Small Business Innovation Research Program, SBIR. This program encourages small businesses to engage in federal research and development that has the potential for commercialization. It's very similar to the Small Business Technology Transfer Program, also known as the STTR, where that program offers funding opportunities in the federal innovation research and development arena. Small businesses who qualify for this program will work with nonprofit research institutions in the early and intermediate stages of startup. The Small Business Administration is a great resource for all new small businesses. All of the information that I've covered today can be found at sba.gov, and I highly recommend checking out their website. As always, we at CALS thank you for watching this program, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me in the email listed on the slide, and I'll do my best to help.